Breaking news, everyone, we have an insane leak to cover today, and that is a new case, which does not sound very exciting, but it is a new case for the upcoming iPhone SE 4. So of course, let's delve into what this reveals. So this case comes from Sonny Dixon, and on the face of it, it looks like pretty much every other iPhone case, but there are a few things to note. Number one, we can see the sides of the case are more flat-sided, similar to newer iPhone models, and that lines up with the rumor that this will be based on the iPhone 14. But the second and biggest takeaway is the camera cutout. This does clearly suggest the SE 4 is going to be sticking to one lens on the back like the SE 3, but before you guys get bummed out about that, do remember it could be a 14 megapixel single lens, which means we should have the 2x crop feature that of course is very similar to having a telephoto lens. We can also see there is seemingly no action button on this. There is a cutout above the volume buttons that I'm assuming is for a regular mute switch. And whilst we see no MagSafe ring inside the case, I don't think Apple's going to skip on that with the SE 4, considering the 14 already included it, and we've had MagSafe for so long at this point, so it's going to be standard across the range. Anyways, let's recap everything we know about the SE 4, and guess what guys? Conveniently, Gurman does exactly this in a new report. So for one, he says this will be similar to the iPhone 14, we'll just cover that, it's not really a surprise, but hey, Gurman chiming in and corroborating on this is big news. This alone means we're going to see Face ID on this instead of the Touch ID home button, and more importantly a 6.1 inch OLED panel, which will be a humongous upgrade over the 4.7 inch LCD panel we have right now on the SE3. But more excitingly, Gurman also clarifies whether the SE4 is going to get Apple Intelligence support or not. Previously, Ice Universe had mentioned, and I quote, we could see 6 to 8 gigs of LPDDR5 memory, which does suggest you might get different amounts of RAM depending on the storage tier you go for. This is quite common in the Android world, but of course would be a first for the iPhone, though do remember the iPad Pros have actually done this for a while now, with the base models getting 8 gigs of RAM and higher storage tiers getting 16 gigs of RAM. Anyways, the issue with this is that if certain models get 6 gigs, that means they can't support Apple Intelligence, and so as I'd mentioned in previous videos, I don't see Apple doing this. It would be a confusing mess if only higher end storage variants supported such a key feature, and thankfully Gurman makes it clear that's not going to be the case. We are going to see Apple Intelligence as standard on the SE4, so yes, you can expect 8 gigs across every storage tier, and to be fair, considering the iPhone 16 is the only phone using the A18 right now, and that has 8 gigs of RAM, they're likely just going to plot the same SoC in the SE4 as well. You know what else would be nice guys? If you subscribe to the channel, of course. It's free and would bring you the latest about Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. Join the Saranbyte gang now. Anyways, let's move on to other details we know about the SE 4. So according to Unknowns21, partially assembled prototypes of the next SE have been equipped with lithium-ion batteries bearing the model number A2863, which Apple has already used in the past for, guess what? The iPhone 14, which again is not really surprising. We know this phone is going to be heavily based on the SE. Now the actual capacity is 3,279 mAh, which is a massive upgrade over the current SE. Now the SE3 is not terrible battery life wise, but it's just about good enough, and so this having similar endurance to the 14, which gets me 7 or 8 hours of screen on time, is really great news. Unknowns21 then explains the obvious and says, Apple's saving money by reusing components, and well, it does not take a genius to work that out, because believe it or not, but reusing old battery tech and chucking it in a new phone is going to be cheaper for Apple, who'd have figured? Jokes aside, this is the blueprint for the SE in general. It's a recycle bin iPhone. Whatever components can be found in the parts bin for a low price ends up being the new SE, and while considering they're still producing the iPhone 14 design, it does make it the perfect candidate for the new SE. Remember, the SE2 replaced the iPhone 8 that was still being produced, and the SE1 replaced the 5S that was also still being produced. Now let's delve into what you guys want to know about the most, which is the release date and price. Gurman does say we can see an early 2025 release, which does make sense because currently the iPhone 14 is the oldest iPhone they sell, and so I'm assuming Apple is going to directly replace that in the spring with the new iPhone SE 4. Now I don't know what's going to happen to the 14 Plus, is that going to stay in the range? Likely not, because it would be weird to have that alongside the SE. But yes, expect a March or April event where we could see this new SE4 release. Apple's been launching new iPhones during the spring pretty consistently, and so they're likely going to stick to that. Pricing wise, I do think the new SE is going to be a little more expensive than the outgoing model. I mean, did we really think Apple was going to give us a modern design, OLED, a better camera, and all these other upgrades for the same exact price? This is not a charity, guys. Tim's here to make some big bucks, and so it's definitely going to be more expensive. and Apple can justify it this time. Now, there is a chance it could be $50 cheaper than the iPhone 14, which is currently $599. And if you're wondering why I think this, it's because when the SE2 released, that was $399 and replaced the $449 iPhone 8. And so the same thing could happen here. We could get lucky and this could be $549, $499 if Timothy feels generous. Now that could mean the SE3 stays in the range for $399, which even then would still be horrific value. But considering the iPad 9 initially stayed in the range when the iPad 10 released, I would not be surprised if Apple does the same here. But hey, hopefully once the iPhone SE4 has been around for a year, we do see some sort of price cut, just so the iPad 10 recently dropped to $349. And I know there's going to be some comments saying Apple's never going to get away with this, they're scamming us, this is too expensive. But no, they absolutely will. I know the tech community hates the SE3 and I do understand why. It's not great value at $429 when there are better spec Android devices for that same price, but that does not stop it from consistently being a great seller. And that's the thing, guys. Yes, we techies focus on the specs, but at the end of the day, only the iPhone offers iOS and that sweet hardware and software integration. Even if Android phones had the best displays and cameras on the planet for the same price, there will still be many buying the iPhone SE3 instead because they want iMessage, they want iDrop, and they of course want longer software support. So basically what I'm trying to say is that Apple's going to sell a bucket load of these new SEs, but personally, unlike the SE3 right now, the SE4, based on the rumors, does seem to be pretty good value. Honestly, for me, the killer feature might not be the new design, it's actually that 40 megapixel main camera, because if it does have a 2x crop, that basically makes up for the lack of a second lens, because the crop in is actually as good as a regular telephoto lens. And the ultra wide is not something everyone's going to use anyways, so I'm totally fine with one fantastic, superb, incredible 48 megapixel sensor on the back of this. And that could be the big reason you get this over the older iPhone 13 or 14, because yes, I know Apple won't be selling these directly, but these older iPhones will still be available refurbished or used, and so I think the SE4 is still going to be a better buy than those devices because it has a new chipset, much better camera, and also Type-C. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. So I was just chilling thinking that, hey, Apple's going to release iPads at the end of the month, I've got some time, I don't have to worry too much. But no, out of the blue, the iPad Mini 7 is official. Actually, it's not called the iPad Mini 7, it's called the iPad Mini brackets A17 Pro, which is a horrible name, but yes, this is the new iPad Mini. It's official. Out of nowhere, Apple dropped this. I'm quite all over the place right now, but anyways, let's delve into the new features. So guys, as we expected, this is a simple spec refresh for the most part. In fact, if you